And assessment, is that something you use?
Yes, I love the VIA. I think everybody in the whole world should take the VIA. Don't mean it's extreme, but anyway, I love the VIA because it's all about not just what's good about a person, which, Chris Peterson says, it's that they were looking to see what is the good of a person, and there are lots of other ways that you could find the good of a person. But what's nice about the VIA is it's things that everybody can agree about are good about a person. And it's also answering questions about what you do. So it is a window into your values. So a lot of times kids think nobody understands how they feel. You're not me. I mean, you maybe said this when you were an adolescent too. I'm sure I did. You're not me. You don't understand how I feel. As if you're the only person in the whole world who ever had these feelings. And even when kids take the VA youth, they start to see that other people are like them, even just a little bit. And I do dynamic family coaching sometimes, and everybody in the family will take the VIA. And the cool thing about it is that you start to see that your siblings who you have this incredible rivalry with, maybe the rivalry is because you both share a strength and you both feel so strongly about that and you value it so much that that's where you're button heads.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that's one of my very favorite tools is the VIA. And I probably I do use that with just about everybody. There are other things to do. The authentic happiness test, if I were looking at somebody where I really wanted to see if we were going to make them happier. But since I really don't focus on that so much, that's only really if I think that's something that I would want to be able to show somebody as a result of what I've been doing with them. So mostly the VIA, that's what I stick with.
And so how do you use it? Like, how do you assign it? How do you give feedback on it?
Well, I have people take it in my office usually because I want to make sure it's as clean an administration as possible. No distractions. They can't ask anybody for answers. Hey, Mom, the question here says, what do you think I do? I don't want any of that. I want a nice, clean administration of it, and then we debrief it. And I divide the results when we print them out, sit down and go over them. I divide it into 3 different categories, basically, the way it's laid out. I don't tell them a whole lot about what it's measuring. I don't want to influence the test results in any way. I really want them to have their debrief as immediately as possible after they've taken the test, because I want the experience of having answered the questions and the debriefing to be very close together.
Right, yeah.
I think that's really important, as opposed to something that they take and then they have lots of other stuff in between and then they forget.
Yeah.
So that's part of the debriefing. So we talk about their top strengths, their signature strengths, their best supporting strengths, which are what I call the strengths 6 through 10. And then we look at the strengths you didn't say you have as strongly. The things you didn't feel strongly about are the things that are the ones with the higher numbers. We don't call them lesser strengths, or we don't call them, weaknesses or anything like that. These are the things that and every kid will say, what's at the bottom? Yeah. Everyone. Because what are they coming to see me because life is good? Not necessarily. But kids will be very quick to tell me how they know they have a certain strength. So sometimes I'll get kids who are fantastic athletes and they do only very marginal work in school. They're always kind of hovering in the D+, C- range, and they get referred to me really because they're struggling in school. And it turns out they've got a lot more to offer, but they sometimes they have who knows what, it could be organization or attention or other learning problems. But a lot of times these kids are very modest. They don't go for extra help at school because they don't want to draw any attention to themselves. They are kids who are offended by other people who, they make the goal and they, put the hockey stick over their head and they spin around the rink, and these kids don't like that. So they don't want any attention drawn to themselves. They don't want to be with people so they're not going to approach somebody like that and say, can you help me study? What are you planning for this particular test? You want to be my lab partner. So they tend to reduce their circle of friends as a result. But when they understand that modesty is a good thing, and they're able to talk about being modest, they're able to say, wow, this is keeping me from something that might be helping. Yeah. Just getting them to be able to go and ask for extra help. Like, I won't say, I want you to raise your hand in class. I will say, what do you think might help? And we'll get a list of choices, and then they have to make a single decision that they act on as a result of that particular coaching session. I have organizational tools where they have to learn how to plan in advance for how they're going to actually accomplish one of those decisions that they make, how they have to lay it out into a planner that's going to make sure that they actually follow up, so that I'm not relying on them to just remember things. We build technology tools into their coaching.
Like what?
For instance, having an iPhone, right? So if you have your iPhone and you have you set up your Google Calendar and you have alerts on it, you can put anything at all that you want to be reminded about in there, and it will remind you. So if the one important thing you have to do, and you need to do it every single day, is you need to put your assignments into Google Calendar, then it's going to remind you that you have to do that, and you can do it every day. But even if it's just one thing.
Right.
I do this with college students, for example. Distance, they either email me or call me. They could be in college, anywhere in the world, and they learn how to organize themselves, how to give yourself an assignment. So once you've made your decision from the array of choices you have, you have the choice to pet the dog, get some ice cream, play video games. I mean, to kids there are a vast array of choices, and any of those is going to have a consequence. And if you don't make sure that my homework is on the choice list, then you may never make the decision to getting where you are. So you have to plan ahead for that and make yourself an assignment. Not the assignment that comes from the teacher, but the assignment that you give to yourself, because then it's more valuable.
Yeah.
Well, if the assignment that you give to yourself is go to extra help, and then you need to know what you're going to ask for when you get there. What help will you need? So then you have to work backwards from that, and kids have to say, oh, well, what I really need help on is learning how to go to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something, I'm thinking of math things, but learning how to provide specific evidence for my thesis statement and my essay, and or learning how to analyze character traits or whatever.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to go to the teacher, and you have to have the language for asking for that. You have to not be embarrassed when you're doing that. So you have to see that your modesty is something that's a value add for you, not something that's been keeping you from doing what you need to do, and learn how to use it in a new way. The other thing is, if maybe teamwork is a great strength for this student who has modesty, and meanwhile you're only in the top 5, and most kids have teamwork as a strength. They want to be part of their peer group, but they don't see that adults are part of the team. But what happens if you need to go ask for extra help from the teacher? You need to know that the teacher is going to be on your team.
Yeah.
So if you go to extra help on a regular basis, the teacher is going to think that you want them on the team.
Right.
So one of the things I get kids to say is, I'm going to go to extra help because I want the teacher to think I care.
Right.
And kids can say this back to me, but they'll also say, isn't that like lying? I'll say, well, no. Don't you want the teacher to think you care? Well, I don't know if I want the teacher to think I care. I said, well, let's just go with it. Let's just decide that you do want the teacher to think you care. And next week I want you to report back to me after you've gone to extra help. I want you to let me know. And eventually the teacher does think that the student cares, and the teacher will go to the student and say, I want you to come for extra help tomorrow because the test is on Thursday, and if you come tomorrow, then I can show you some of the things that you're going to need to know, and we'll just check and make sure you have all your skills together.
Right.
Well, then you have the teacher on board. The kid thinks the teacher is on the team. The student does better. They bring home a better test grade. The parent is excited. After a while, it's all good.
Right.
And it all is because the child understands that being modest is not a bad thing, and that all these other people who are drawing all attention to themselves, that's fine. That's something that's good about the way they operate, and this is a good thing about me.
Right.
But that's only just going through the top 5. Then you can start learning how to make strengths teams, or you can learn how, since strengths don't live by themselves, Robert Biswas-Diener is all about the idea that strengths are integrated and more dynamic, and I absolutely agree. So you don't just have a static list, you have a list that's always moving around in some way, but there's some things that are more about how you are than other things are. So we learn about that too.
And strengths teams, can you tell me about how you work with that?
Well, so people don't always use their powers for good. I like to think of Darth Vader, for example, as someone who did not use, the Force was strong with that one, in Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, he had the Force too, but he was a bad guy. So sometimes kids are not using their powers for good. An example would be somebody who has a strength of bravery, humor, and social intelligence might be a class clown.
Yeah.
And those kids need to understand that they have these great strengths, but they might not be using those powers for good.
Right.
So that's a strengths team. How can I use that team to get me more of something else that I want?
Yeah.
So to get more of what it is that you want, you have to be able to know what it is that you want. Maybe what you want is lots of attention.
Yeah.
maybe what you want is to take attention away from the task at hand because you don't really understand what's going on in class anyway. So if you have the attention be all about you, then the classroom doesn't really progress a whole lot in terms of content, and everybody will love you for that too. So that's often the perception of the funny kid.
Yeah.
I'm doing everybody a favor, including myself.
Right.
So that would be an example of a team, but you can certainly turn that around. So say somebody really could potentially have lots of leadership. If you can see that that is a strength that could be developed, you can develop leadership with the kid who's brave. That's great because people want, not only will they want to follow that kid, they also see that kid as somebody really admirable. If they're funny, that is transcendent. You can kind of get over the humps of difficult things. If they have great social intelligence, then people like them, and they are good at forging new and maintaining existing relationships with people. So there you have a kid who could become the class president.
Yeah.
But yet you have to make sure that you help them understand that they have this great set of strengths and that they can use that as a team.
Right. And other ways you work with the VIA and the strengths?
Oh, well, since I use it with everybody and I've worked with thousands of people, it would be endless.
So typically...
I think the big thing is to help people understand that there are great and wonderful things about them, and that they often think of those things as either they don't think of them at all. It's like breathing. It doesn't exist. You don't know about it until you're choking. Or I think sometimes people think that a strength that they have is actually some sort of a liability. So if you're somebody who is highly creative, but you're in a work environment, like if you're a teacher who's highly creative, for example, you are expected to do what it is that they tell you to do and to follow the curriculum. If today is Tuesday, this must be Paris, kind of thing. A lot of times, when you come to understand that the reason you're feeling so choked by your job is that creativity is really important to you, you can learn to find other venues for expressing your creativity outside of your work.
Right.
For students, I tell them that you need to be able to go to your teacher and say, I've read the directions and I understand that this is what you want. I'm wondering if it would be okay if such and such, because I'd like to try a creative way of doing it. And most of the time, if you approach a teacher that way, the teacher will say, at least they'll say, let me think about it. Even if they don't say, they won't say no. They might not say, oh, what a great idea. Every now and then you'll get one that will do that. But at least they won't shut you down completely.
Yeah.
Whereas if you turn it in and you don't follow the directions, they're just going to take off points, or they're going to say, next time follow directions, or in big red letters, see me.
Yeah.
You're trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
And you're trying to forge a better relationship. So using the VIA for those tools is good too. Starting to see something about yourself that's feeling painful. I call these strengths buttons. It's like you have a big, hit me on your arm there. And so it might be appreciation of beauty and excellence. And, for instance, I drove onto the campus here and it's very beautiful. And right away I feel, just uplifted, how exciting and beautiful, what a wonderful day, even though it's cloudy, or, because it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And if you sort of say you have that as a strength, and your commute to work every day is just such, it's horrible. So you might have to find a way to address that, because you can't spend your whole day commuting all the way in an hour and a half of misery on the highway or whatever you're doing and feeling like someone's pushing your beauty and excellence button. So either you need to not commute, which would be like the huge approach to that, or get a different job, or maybe you'd find, you would listen to a book on your MP3 player, or you would have music in the car, or you would ride with a friend and have conversation, because you also have social intelligence, or it could be a lot of other things you could do. So it's learning that something about yourself that you think is a problem doesn't need to be fixed. It's actually great and wonderful, and you're just going to use it in a new way.
Right.